In this lesson, I want to talk about a 5.1 track setup because as you can see over here in our mixer, our output bus is set up for stereo, 2 channels. You'll see that over here in the mixer. You will also see that up here in our meters window. Now, I am working in timeline number 7, the 5.1 track output setup, if you are going to be following along after the fact. And what I'm going to do is just solo our female main track, just because it's got a very good laugh. There we go, very nice. I can stop that there. Because what's important for me to point out is that if you take a look over here at the mixer, and you'll notice that I've just sort of whittled this down to the 3 first tracks because I'm only really dealing with track number 3. If I double click on the pan option, you'll see that we can get in and sort of do this however we want in 5.1. However, if I was just to take this and drag it to the back left-hand corner and close this, and I hit play, you'll notice that all that has really happened is that the audio has been panned to the left. We actually don't have anything really happening in 5.1. So the reason is, why is that? Well, what's important to keep in mind is that it all comes down to what is happening on the bus that everything is currently routed into. So right now, the bus that is set up is a stereo bus. Now you might be thinking, well, do I have to delete that bus and add a new one? You actually don't have to do any of that. We can just get in and switch this bus from a stereo bus to a 5.1 bus. So the question, of course, is how do we do that? Well, if you remember from our introduction to Fairlight course when we talked about tracks and buses, you'll know that we can navigate up to the Fairlight dropdown, and we don't want to come to the assign bus. We want to come to the bus format, because what's important to keep in mind is that the way that we're currently working, we only have one bus, just our output bus. So I'm simply going to click on that. Now, what's important to keep in mind is that I got in and renamed that bus output. So if I wanted to call it, final, and I came down and said, okay, you'll see that it immediately switches over there and again back up here. But what I'm going to do is head back into that bus format window, and you'll now see that our final bus, which is our main output bus, which I really should switch back and call output, just so that I can keep track of everything, is currently set to stereo, only 2 channels. Of course, for us, we are doing a 5.1 mix. I'm going to come down, select 5.1 for the purposes of what we're doing, and you'll notice that as soon as I did that, that bus, depending on what I have selected, will immediately change. If I now select 5.1, I now get the 6 channels. Keep in mind, left, right, center, sub, left surround, right surround. I can now come down and say OK, and when I come back and hit play, you'll now see that because I've placed that audio, if I come back to the panner here, I'm not even going to open it, I can just show it to you here, back in the back left-hand corner, that to me tells me that that is now a surround. It should be happening on the back left-hand speaker, which would be track 5. So if I come back here and you take a look up here, you're going to see the audio appearing in track 5 exactly as it should be appearing. Now, what is important to keep in mind is that assuming you're going to be doing a 5.1 mix, chances are you're going to want to monitor everything in 5.1. I, in this case, have a stereo setup for the purposes of my recording, so I have it set to stereo. But the question is now going to be, how do we get in, and if we actually have the hardware set up to actually monitor a 5.1 mix? And I'm going to talk about that in the next lesson.